Hi everybody, happy April for the Flavor Adventure with Lawrenceburg Public Library and myself, Carisa Bunten. A big thanks to the Lawrenceburg Public Library and the Friends of the Library, and most importantly you, for sponsoring the kits, registering for the kits, expressing interest, and coming in and checking them out and picking them up. So for the Flavor Adventure for April, we've picked Turmeric. And I'm trying really hard to correct my pronunciation, but even though I've used and cooked and eaten this spice for years and years and years, I'm a native Kentuckian and I've always pronounced it turmeric. So I'll do the best I can, but in my world, if it's interchangeable, turmeric is the same thing as turmeric. So as I start to talk, I might slide into my Kentucky pronunciation. So turmeric is a very distinct flavor and certainly color as well. And it's very easy to pick out. It adds flavor, color, and nutrition to even the simplest dishes. And it's oftentimes a substitute for saffron that is that super, super expensive, what I think the most expensive spice in the world. Comes from the crocus stamens that they have to pluck and harvest one little stamen at a time. So it's similar and in the same family with palate, flavor, and color. So if you ever see a fancy recipe that calls for saffron, but you don't want to go to Jungle Jim's and spend $95 on a little tin of it, not that it's not worth it, but we can't all do that, this turmeric would make a great substitution for any of your other recipes. So turmeric itself is a dried root or a rhizome. And it's related to ginger, and it looks a lot like ginger, fresh and dried. So like the ginger root that you get at the store, they look very similar, like first cousins. And it does have a subtle sweetness, kind of not quite as sweet as like a sweet potato or other tubers that we eat, but it has that same kind of richness or that earthy sweetness that only like roots have, that are like a carrot sweetness, if that makes sense. And then along with the carrot flavor and the sweetness, it's super rich and earthy, which makes sense since it's a root or a rhizome and you literally pull it out like you would pull out a carrot or a potato. It's generally blended with pepper and ginger, and it blends with those really well. So they're kind of a holy trinity, especially in like Indian and Middle Eastern cooking. You generally taste turmeric, pepper, and ginger all together. So this adds to the flavor a little bit, but mostly the research, and this touches on the health benefits of turmeric, because it is loaded with an oil that's called curcumin. And you'll see that the ground turmeric that you get in quality, like the stuff that we sell at the shop, if we bag it up ahead of time too soon, it'll actually start to kind of cake together and clump, because the curcumin oil is such a high quality and concentration that it kind of makes it sort of sticky and webby. So they say the stickier and kind of cakier your ground turmeric is, the higher quality is and the more curcumin oil that it has in it. So like the dry kind of powdery turmeric that you might get at just like a standard herbs and spice shelf like at the Kroger or something, that comes out really easy and doesn't have that tendency to cake. I'm not saying it's not great, but it's definitely a lesser quality, and then it doesn't possess that high quantity of the oil, the curcumin oil, that gives turmeric its distinct flavor, color, and its anti-inflammatory and health benefits. So not just the flavor, but if you want to incorporate turmeric into your diet just as a healthy herb and spice to try to kind of up your overall nutritional content of your regular meals, you would want one with a really high curcumin content and quantity. So also, it's got the phytonutrients in it. So these two things combined, the curcumin and the phytonutrients in the turmeric root, have shown significant research, and you can just Google it or hit in any Health Digest, and loads of research results for the anti-inflammatory properties of turmeric are out there. One of the reasons, too, that the Western world has kind of incorporated this into our diets now more than ever is that since we are more globally aware and we look at the diets of Eastern and Indian nations, and they don't have a lot of the same illnesses and troubles that Westerners have as a result of poor diet, this is one of the main ingredients. It's pretty much in almost everything that they consume and eat. So we've kind of tried to glean onto that idea and see where, you know, they've got a good thing going. Why not kind of tap into that? So with that being said, since we wanted you to have the very highest quality turmeric root, and I wanted you to really see like what it looks like in its true source, because we usually see it powdered or in dishes already cooked in, I wanted to include just the actual roots in it. So this is what they look at like. Everybody has an ounce of dried, certified organic turmeric root. And this came all the way from Sri Lanka. Frontier Natural Food Co-op has a fair trade turmeric farm in Sri Lanka, which is known for its soil and arid temperatures to grow some of the finest turmeric in the world. So this will also have a really, really, really long extended shelf life. And I mean by really, really long, I mean like years. So you'll be able to keep this in your spice cupboard, keep it in this bag, and take it out and use it as needed, because very little is needed for any recipe, flavor, or color. And I would just take a fine grater, kind of like a Parmesan grater or something like that, and grate it freshly as needed, and then measure it out in your quantities. And generally the quantities are like teaspoons, so it's not a lot of grating or work. The other thing you can do that I really like to do, and it's not in your handout, but I included it in our YouTube video instead, is just take a couple of these roots. You don't need many, and each bag has several. An ounce is probably at least 8 to 11. It just kind of varies on weight. But take your paring knife and lacerate it, put little slits or cuts and kind of bruise it, and sort of kind of beat your root up, because you'll see they're quite hard and dry right now. And then you can macerate it or infuse it. It's kind of the same thing. They're interchangeable words. Right into a cooking oil or into ghee. If you use that clarified cooking ghee, you can get it at Aldi's now too for less than $10 a jar, and it has a really high smoke point, so you can kind of like char and sear stuff in it without a burned flavor. You can lacerate and bruise these little roots and drop them right into your cooking oil and just allow them to infuse in. You'll see like an avocado oil or a grapeseed oil or even a canola. It'll start to turn that really pretty orangey, yellow, golden color, and it'll flavor your oil and it'll color your oil too. So if you do like a stir fry and use a little bit of your infused oil, it'll give it that golden yellow color and kind of a pop. So that's one of my favorite ways to introduce turmeric into just everyday easy cooking. I pick one little jar of ghee or cooking oil to macerate it and infuse it, and then use it kind of interchangeably. Now, not all of my cooking oils at home are infused, but it's an easy way to do it, and it's fun with little kids too, to kind of set on your counter or on your kitchen table, and you can watch the color leach up into the oil, and it just really, it's very pretty. And then you can also smell it and taste it too. I can smell this when I open it, and to me it just smells like if you went out right now and turned over a few big shovels of dirt and were lucky enough to have a few good worms in there. So very earthy and clean and spring. So in your handout, I've included a couple of recipes, and one is super easy, and it's kind of a more westernized way and to incorporate the flavor of turmeric into our palate and our diets. And it's a honey turmeric pork chop, and it's with roasted beets and carrots. And it would make sense that turmeric does good with carrots, beets, potatoes, because it's a root too, onions, and so kind of that earthy flavor is enhanced and brought out by other roots and rhizomes that we ingest and eat. And this can be done in about 45 minutes to an hour maximum, and that's with prep time. And it's a really good way to kind of give a new flavor to things that we probably all already have at home in our cupboard or we get at the grocery store, with the exception of your turmeric root. And then with the health benefits that we talked about, even over the flavor palette, it's really been Googled and brought into the Western world because of its anti-inflammatory and health benefits. I included a mango turmeric smoothie. And again, with this, you need 1 teaspoon. So a teeny teaspoon. You would just freshly grate your turmeric root into a little teaspoon. A cup of frozen mango chunks, which you can get in the frozen food section at any grocery store. A fresh cup of kale, which I like to buy now, the already washed and cut and pre-rinsed, like ready to use. And a half of an avocado. And then the coconut water, or you can use coconut milk. I prefer the water. And those are really easy, common ingredients to find now. Even the Dollar Tree sells coconut water and milk. And it's a really quick, easy smoothie that gives you a load of nutrients, a lot of protein with your avocado and that healthy fat, and brings in a new flavor and color that's probably something that we're not always used to. One thing worth noting, and this is again to talk about the flavor palette of turmeric, but just to touch on the health benefits and the properties and its anti-inflammatory properties. It does have blood thinning properties. And so if you were to start to take this as a supplement, I'm not as just like to incorporate into your cooking or your diet, but you like the idea or you did more reading on it and you were going to use turmeric as a supplement for your health, you would want to check with your doctor and be sure there weren't any precautions or interactions with any sort of prescription medicine you were taking, because it is so potent and this curcumin oil is really like a true medicinal property. You wouldn't want to have any interactions or do anything that could potentially make you feel worse and not better. Now, what we did this month for the jellies out of the commercial kitchen, my consumer packaged goods, is made a turmeric jelly. And I was really, really, really happy with it. And I used your roots that are in your bag, and I just cut them up and kind of sifted them. So I cut and sifted them into little like chunks, maybe itty bitty cubes. And I used a cup of dry cut and sifted turmeric root to infuse into water. And then I added lime juice, pectin, and sugar to make the jelly. And look at that color. It's really nice. And I feel like this you could use with anything. Peanut butter, toast, jam, or like you would use any other jam, like a substitute. But what I would also do is use this as a glaze or a marinade. Maybe for like a rice or a rich lamb. Or you could incorporate it into your pork chop recipe as a side, kind of make like a chutney with it. Because it's really good, but you can definitely taste that earthy turmeric in it. And the sweetness kind of makes it a little more palatable. You could also add it to a vinegar and add an acid to it and kind of make your own relish or marinade with that. So there's a lot of potential here, and let me know what you think of it, because it's not a common flavor that we would see in jelly, but I really think it came out well. And then the surfaces are lovely too. When you open it up, it looks liquid, but it did gel up nice. It almost reminds me of like if you took a bunch of egg yolks and separated them and beat them really well, the color that an egg yolk would be, and then that kind of like smooth, glassy surface. So again, what's in your turmeric jelly? The first ingredient is sugar. The second is a turmeric cuisine, which is just the cut and sifted root that you have in your bag. And I steeped it in 3.5 cups of water. And since roots take a little bit longer to strain and get the strength because they're rough and tough, you do what's called a decoction. And a decoction means you just boil it a little bit longer, a little bit stronger, and a little bit more. And then you really press and fool with those roots until they get soft and spongy. And you want to really saturate them and not take them out too soon and get every little speck out of that you can. So then we had the turmeric cuisine. I added lime juice and then pectin. And the fruit pectin I use is just Sure Gel from the grocery store. It's the 1.75 ounce containers. And it's vegan, so you don't have to worry about any animal protein in that. It's completely plant-based and free for you to use and experiment with. And if you come up with any good like dressings or recipes or marinades, please feel free to share. And again, not to touch on the flavor, the earthy, distinct color and flavor of turmeric, but it has a big stain warning, and it's worth mentioning, especially if you're not used to using it and cooking with it a lot, or you do decide to grate or cut. The color is so strong that it will actually stain your fingernails. And I've used turmeric before and worked with it like all day, and then it's taken me over a week to get my nails and hands clean, and they look dirty and kind of like yellow, almost like I'm like a smoker or something. And then it can potentially stain a countertop. So if you have an older countertop that's porous, or you just have a countertop you're worried about, like a white marble or something, be sure to use a cutting board, and use a cutting board that you don't care about, like one that already has stains on or has a side that's kind of marred and scratched. Don't use your prized kitchen possessions or cut this right on the counter, because it will leave a really deep orangey golden stain that's incredibly difficult to get out. When I was making the jelly the other day, I dropped a few drops on the stainless work tables in the kitchen, and it took me 3 passes with hydrogen peroxide to get it to come off of stainless steel. And that was just a few drips of jelly, like as I was filling the jars up. With that being said, this doesn't have anything to do with its amazing earthy flavor, but it makes a great fabric dye. So if you try this and you just know this is not going to be for you, and you like the idea of incorporating a new flavor but you're not going to use it all, or you're going to use some of it and not all of it, you could take these roots and make tisane and dye like dish towels, muslin, cheesecloth, all sorts of things, and it makes a really, really pretty, like an autumnal hue, goldy orange fabric dye that stays and lasts for a long time. So just an aside, if you decide to cook with it and it's not for you, do something with it. The other thing you could do with it is make Easter egg dye. You could make a turmeric teas and infusions and dye your Easter eggs in it. So again, I just want to mention the stain warning. And yours is really going to be stainy, because since you've got that whole pure, unadulterated, intact root, the curcumin oil is just at an all-time high, and that's what brings you that color and that staining propensity. So in conclusion, for the month of April, a flavor adventure with Lawrenceburg Library and myself, Carisa Bunten, with 7th Street Gifts. We did turmeric, and this is the right way to say it, but I'm from Kentucky and I pronounce it turmeric. Oops, sorry about that. A super distinct flavor and color, easy to pick out. It's generally in curries and Indian dishes. You can occasionally substitute it for saffron if you ever have a recipe that calls for it. Loaded with nutrition, comes from a dried root related to ginger, and everything you need is in here to enjoy your flavor palette for turmeric. And then let me know how you like the jelly too. So we'll see you next month, May. And until then, enjoy your turmeric and let me know what you make with it. And don't stain your countertops or your fingers with it, especially if you just got your nails did or something. You'll never forget me. It takes forever to get out. And think about trying to infuse one of those oils too. It's a super easy way to do it. You could do it the minute you get home today. You could just lacerate them, drop it right in an extra cooking oil, put it in a sunny spot, and watch that color and flavor bleed right up into that oil. And it's just a really fun way to incorporate it in, and super simply. So we'll see you next time, and thanks again.